What if I told you that this separation wasn't the end of the world? What if this pain you still feel wasn't weakness, but a divine signal that something is returning to your life? You loved him, her, sincerely. You prayed, you cried, and despite the breakup, your heart never truly let go. But listen carefully. There are silent signs you may be ignoring. Signs that it's not over. Signs that Allah is preparing the return of this bond, not in its broken form, but in a restored, blessed, profound version. In this video, we will explore what you should be observing, what your soul may have already perceived, and why what you feel today is no accident. Stay until the end, because one detail in this message might just confirm what your heart has been waiting for all this time. When the soul refuses to say Amen, there are absences that cry out louder than any presence. You live your life. You pretend to have turned the page, but there's this name, this first name that seeps in between two thoughts, that appears in your invocations when you least expect it. And you don't know why, but it doesn't fade. Not completely. You tried. You said it was over, that it was better this way. You even thanked Allah for this breakup, thinking you were finally on the right path. But something inside you keeps beating. Not for what was, but for what could never be. It's not a step backward. It's not a relapse. It's a vibration that your heart captures in the invisible. Something your mind may not understand, but your soul instinctively recognizes. Do you know why? Because sometimes a breakup isn't a rejection. It's a divine pause. A necessary pause for two hearts to cleanse themselves, straighten themselves, reconnect with the source. And this name that returns, without causing you pain, it's not a weakness. Perhaps it's a reminder. Not a reminder of human love, but a reminder of an unfulfilled mission between two souls. A celestial contract interrupted, but not terminated. There are bonds that aren't made for social media, nor for perfect encounters. There are bonds that are formed in the invisible, the moment two hearts pronounce the same name in their dua, without knowing it. And you feel that it's not a simple memory. It's not a destructive nostalgia. It's a peace, a soft light, a silent intuition. You may have changed. You're no longer the person you were during that relationship. You're no longer blinded, no longer impulsive, no longer broken. But despite this change, that name is still there. Not chained to your past, but anchored in your future. So you ask Allah, in the solitude of the night, is it you who makes me feel this way? Or is it just my heart clinging to what it has lost? And in the silence, nothing, but the silence calms you, because it doesn't feel like a void. It feels like a delayed response. You feel you're being watched, that this bond is being watched, not by people, but by the one who wrote both trajectories. And maybe you weren't meant to get lost, but to move away only to return better. Because there are dua that aren't answered immediately. Not because they're rejected, but because they require maturity, consistency, alignment. What if this person isn't gone from your life, but simply set aside for another chapter? Only your soul can feel that. It's not an ordinary emotion. It's a sensation that goes beyond attachment. It's as if Allah is saying to you, not now, but don't forget him completely. And maybe that's why you still feel that thrill when you hear his name. Not a pain, not an obsession, but a silent promise, never broken. The world can tell you to move on, but your soul, it hasn't closed the book yet. And if you hear these words today, it's not by chance, because your heart knows what your mind is trying to forget. And Allah knows what your heart cannot put into words. You thought it was over. But sometimes, the divine didn't say no to you. He just said, wait. 2. When the breakup was actually a detour. They weren't looking for each other, but their hearts recognized each other, not in their eyes, not in romantic gestures, but in something more subtle, more sacred. It was a connection beyond words, a calm that settled between them, effortlessly, a sensation their hearts had never felt before. And yet, everything fell apart. No infidelity, no betrayal, just that sudden distance that grows when souls are no longer aligned. Misinterpreted silences, sloppy prayers, inner wounds the other didn't understand. She felt too much. He ran away from what he didn't understand. And one day, just like that, without drama, they decided to leave each other. And not for lack of love, but for an inability to bear it properly. She cried quietly in her sajda. He looked away from what hurt too much. They each went on their way, thinking that destiny had spoken. But destiny, the real one, hadn't said anything yet. Months passed. Habits changed. Other names appeared on the phones, in conversations. But, in the invocations, always the same one. You see, there are people we forget over time. But when a soul has touched your soul at the right time, with sincerity, it leaves an imprint that nothing erases. And that's when the divine process begins. What they believed to be a separation was actually surgery on the soul. Allah separated them, to better rebuild them. She learned to no longer love with fear. He learned to no longer run away from what is pure. She faced her unhealed wounds, her hidden traumas. She stopped diminishing herself to be loved. She gave her Lord back the central place in her heart. He understood that being a man wasn't about being distant, but about being responsible for what you create in someone's heart. He saw that love is not enough if faith is absent, and while they thought they had forgotten each other, Allah was watching them, transforming them, aligning them, without them realizing it. Then one day, without warning, a coincidence, a phrase heard, a dream, a name reappeared. Not like a ghost from the past, but like a half-open door in the present. They didn't come back out of nostalgia. They returned, healed. Not to find what they were, but to build what they weren't yet ready to build. It wasn't a step backward. It was a return to where the story was truly meant to begin. Because sometimes, it's not love that's lacking. It's the spiritual maturity to protect it. And Allah knows this. So He takes you by the hand, takes away what you believe to be the center of your happiness, and He gives it back to you. When you are finally able to love in His name, and not according to your need. You think you've lost someone, but in reality, you've lost a version of yourself that wasn't yet ready to welcome them. What if this separation that you mourned so much was actually the greatest proof that your prayer had been heard? 3. Your heart still cries because it knows. There are tears you don't show to anyone. They fall when everyone is asleep. When nothing hurts anymore, but something inside you refuses to heal. You live, you work, you laugh sometimes. But in a remote corner of your heart, a name continues to glow faintly. Not like a regret, more like a flame that the wind has never managed to extinguish. And sometimes, without you understanding why, a song, a phrase, a place, awakens everything. It's not a simple memory. It's not an emotional weakness. It's a sacred trace. Something your soul has experienced. Something your mind has forgotten. But something your heart has never erased. There are people you naturally forget because they were only passers-by, but others, you can't make them leave you because they didn't enter by chance. They had a place, a mission, a role written by the one who created you. You may have tried to erase that person. You did everything you could to move on. You asked Allah to tear that name from your heart. But the bond remained, not as a sick attachment, but as a silent, peaceful, motionless certainty that something is not yet over. Your heart cries, but they are not tears of loss, they are tears of knowledge, because there is something inside you that has understood. Even if you no longer want to hope, even if your logic says it's over, even if reality seems locked away, your heart, however, remembers what it saw when you were at peace, when that person prayed with you, when your silences made sense, when you didn't need much to be complete. That bond doesn't make a sound today, but it still vibrates in your sleep, in your sudden thoughts, in those precise moments when you feel that person thinking of you at the same time, and you have no proof, but you feel, and that's enough. Because love, true love, doesn't depend on contact, nor on the frequency of messages. It survives as sense. It crosses the seasons. And sometimes it cries softly. Not because it's lost, but because it's waiting to be recognized again. Don't blame yourself. It's not a lack of faith. It's not an addiction. It's just your heart that saw what the world doesn't. It's not an illusion. You didn't dream of this love. You carried it sincerely. You entrusted it to Allah. And now you wait, not out of impatience, but because your heart has perceived what your eyes no longer see. The return of a soul you have never ceased to bless in silence. And every time you feel that thrill, every time you feel that pang, when you pronounce their name in a dua without forcing it, every time you wake up with that strange feeling that a chapter remains to be written, know this: it's not a coincidence. It's not an obsession, it's a sacred memory. And your heart cries again, not because it wants to go back to the past, but because it knows deep down that something or someone hasn't finished coming back yet. 4. Is this a sign, or is it just me? You ask, almost ashamedly, almost silently. Is what I feel really from Allah? Or is it just me who can't let go? You want to be clear-headed. You want to be strong. But something inside you won't shut up. So you doubt. You turn this feeling over in your head, over and over again. And you ask yourself, am I telling myself a story? Or am I living it? Then listen. Has this connection brought you closer to Allah? Not in moments of comfort, but in sleepless nights, in the sajdas where you spoke His name without forcing it, in those moments when you felt lost, and your only refuge was Him. Since the separation, have you grown? Or have you remained a prisoner of a memory? You see, a sincere connection, even if interrupted, leaves a mark that encourages elevation. It breaks you, but to purify you. It removes an illusion, but gives you direction. And if, since this separation, you feel that your heart is more lucid, more turned towards Allah, then perhaps this pain is not a poison, but an antidote. Do you feel a peace, however fragile, when you think of this person in your dua? Not an obsession, not a need, but a soft, almost silent light that invades you when you pronounce their name between two invocations. Do you think it's you? Do you think your heart is manipulating you? No. Your heart wouldn't have led you to something so pure if it were ruled by whim. And if, despite everything, you don't feel hatred, if you've never wished him ill, if you continue in secret to say, "O Allah, even if it's not for me, bless his path," then something inside you has understood love. The real one, the one free from ego, the one who doesn't beg but prays silently, the one who knows that if it's written, then Allah will bring it back at the right time, in the right version. And if you feel that your love has transformed, that it's no longer a dependency, but a gentle light, a blessing that you entrust to your Creator, then perhaps you need to change your question. It's not, does this feeling come from me or from him? It's rather, what is Allah trying to teach me through this feeling? What if what you feel isn't a trap, but a call to look higher, further, deeper? You want to run away from this thought. You want to bury it, forget it, banish it. But why does it always come back in the moments when you are most sincere? Why does this name resurface when your heart is most connected? Why is it always in the quiet, in tears, in secrecy, that this memory comes alive again? Maybe it's not an obsession. Maybe it's not an illusion. Maybe it's just a reminder. Discreet, silent, but real. And instead of continuing to run away from him, what if you started listening to him? With more faith than fear. 5. When the wind blows back in the right direction, there are winds that tear away, and others that bring back what you thought was lost. You've weathered storms, gusts that have overturned your bearings, carried away faces, shattered certainties. And you found yourself there, standing, facing the void, looking at the wreckage of what you called us. But there's something we forget about the wind. It changes, it turns, it softens, it learns. And when Allah decides the time is right, that wind no longer destroys. It brings back. Not like before, not the same pieces, not the same pain. It doesn't bring back the past. It brings back the future you weren't yet ready to welcome. You see, when a leaf falls from a tree, it's not because it's useless. It's because the season has changed. But not all leaves rot. Some fall, only to return in a different way. And sometimes, a soul also falls from your life. Not to die, but to mature elsewhere. In silence, in absence, in the invisible. And one day, without warning, you feel the wind return. It makes no noise. It doesn't knock at your door. But it enters through signs, through these strangely familiar encounters, through these dreams that never fade when you wake up, through this strange peace when you speak its name again. It's not a coincidence. It's a divine orchestration. The elements begin to align. You pray, and you feel a presence. You doubt, and you come across a word that speaks to you. You question yourself, and your heart finds an answer without anyone speaking to it. It's as if the universe breathes with you, as if the stars remember an oath you've forgotten, as if your soul finally recognizes the path it left behind. And then you understand, this is not a return. This is a restoration. Not of yesterday's bond, fragile and immature, but of the bond that the divine has repaired in silence, sown in the invisible with the patience of heaven. A bond that neither time, nor distance, nor forgetting have been able to destroy. Because this bond was never human. It was sacred from the beginning. So when the wind returns, don't think it's a step backward. It's a step toward what you were meant to be, so that this bond would survive without breaking again. And maybe deep down, you feel it. This time, it's not a coincidence. It's not a repeat. It's the right wind, the right time, the true bond. What if, just this time, it's the real one? Perhaps what you're experiencing right now isn't an end, but a silent scene of a divine plan far greater than you can imagine. If you still feel that connection, if something within you refuses to be extinguished, then it may not be an attachment, but guidance. But remember, it's not your impatience that will bring that person back. It's your transformation, your sincere return to God, your ability to see with the eyes of the soul and not the ego. If this video spoke to you, then share it with someone who needs hope. Subscribe if you want to continue exploring these profound signs that the world often forgets to listen to. And above all, don't ignore what your heart feels in silence. Because sometimes Allah speaks right there, or speaks right.